So in this session today, we will be talking about, we'll just be consolidating everything that you may have learned in our classes, if you have been a student or wherever, if you have been studying on your own. And we will look at different types of questions and different approaches for those questions. Now, I felt that this session is a must-do session because in different types of questions and approaches for different types of questions, it prepares your mind as to what type of an answer I'm going to look for and how am I supposed to think. You do not just rush into every critical reasoning questions with the same mindset. There are certain rules to answering some of the questions. Many questions differ in their approaches. Many questions differ in the type of content that you have to use to answer them. And this is what today's class aims at doing. It will show you different families of questions that exist, maximum what is the type of question that comes in the exam, and how to think in terms of answering those questions. So without further ado, let me start with how I like to see these questions in critical reasoning. Now, these are the three prominent families that we have divided it into. If you are, if you have studied from some other sources, many students look at GMAT and LSAT books, that is all right. But this is the simplest division that I could do based on the types of questions that come in the CLAT exam specifically and in most Indian exams generally. And these families have been created purely on the basis of the answer techniques, the answering techniques and the thinking techniques. So the three families of questions are main point and must be true, evidence family, and method of reasoning or fallacy questions. These cover about 99% of paragraph-based reasoning or classical critical reasoning questions. That is main point and must be true questions, evidence family question, and method of reasoning or fallacy questions, right? Now, I will summarize the three families questions and tell you what are the differences, and we will do that together. Now, in most of our classrooms, we have covered main point must be true. Many classes that I've taken, we have covered this part. In many classes, evidence family is going on. After this, deductive and all was also covered. So some of you will be completely familiar with all of this. Our long-term students have done all the three family of questions, so they will be very, very familiar with what I'm going to talk about today. But this can be seen as a consolidated session where you have covered this separately. Now together, we will see these three families and can make comparison notes, and it can also serve as a revision to those who clearly know the three family types of today, right? So it can be as a revision session. For some, it can be a consolidated session that summarizes what you all have done in the classroom. And for some other people who are joining us on our YouTube channel, etc., it could be a good introductory session, right? So these are the three families: main point, evidence, and method of reasoning. Now, they are very, very distinct from each other in types of answers that they accept, and they are very distinct from each other in the way we think of those answers. Now, in the main point or must be true family of questions, you are asked the main point or what follows from the passage. The passage supports which of the following conclusions? What must be true if the passage is true? Each of the following follows from the passage except. So these are the question types that you are likely to encounter. All these question types have to be answered in a similar manner. You have to read the passage, and the answer type here has to be either the conclusion of the passage or the summary of the passage or an inference you draw from reading the passage. When is the answer the conclusion of the passage? This will be dealt with when you see the options. When you see the options, Options that just repeat some facts from the passage should be eliminated. Options that talk about vague things not mentioned in the passage should be eliminated. If you see an option that gives you the conclusion of the author, that is a likely answer. Many times you can see an option that just summarizes the whole passage. Conclusion plus evidence. That can also be an answer. Many times you will read the passage. It will probably just give you a set of facts or a phenomena. In that scenario, the answer will be a conclusion or an inference you can draw from reading the facts or the phenomena. You know, sometimes the author gives you, describes a phenomena in medicine or in environment or in behavior. And you will notice one of the options gives you a lesson from that description or gives you a conclusion from that description, which is very generic. You know, that the people have a tendency to behave like this with each other. It could be when an author is describing a behavioral pattern that is observed either in corporates or in society. And when you read that, you can draw a general conclusion about how people behave. So many times this type of an answer is an answer in the main point or must be true family. So you have either summary answers here, conclusion answers here, or inference answers here. Here the inferences can be seen as general commentary as well. So this type of answer is very distinct from evidence family answers and method of reasoning questions. So if you have copied all this, these are the question types for which the answer I am discussing. What is the main point? What must be true? If the passage above is true, what follows from the passage? So follows, must be true, main point, support. These are the keywords that you see here. You also see a question type such as each of the following follows from the passage except. That means 3 options will summarize or give the conclusion and 1 option will be very different. That will be your answer. So an except question is like the main point question, but for the fact that the answer has to be one which you cannot draw from the passage. Right? So as I was telling you, either you will get a conclusion or a rephrased or summarized argument, or an inferred conclusion in passage types where the author does not make any opinion, just describes a phenomenon to you. So you are also likely to get that. 1 minute. The inferred conclusion. This answer type is visible when the author just shares with you a set of facts or describes a phenomenon. And when you read that, you draw a general commentary or a conclusion. Inferred conclusion is also sometimes referred to as what must be true. It is also sometimes referred to as what must be true. And in this category of questions, what is the type of thinking that you have to do? Here, your thinking has to evolve around what is written, trying to catch the conclusion of the author, and from reading phenomena or facts, trying to gauge a bigger conclusion or a general conclusion. The best method to solve these questions is to look at the options. You cannot predict beforehand whether the author will give the conclusion or whether the author is going to summarize it for you. This knowledge will dawn upon you only when you read the given options. So read the given options, then decide what is the type of an answer that the options are suggesting. Best method here is to eliminate. What all will you eliminate? Extra knowledge options. Simple options that are repeating facts from the passage should be eliminated. Focus on the remainder of the options. Then choose which type of answer is the option giving you. So pre-thinking here, pre-thinking means before you mark the answer, you have to focus on the conclusion. The conclusion can be anywhere in the argument. Please never forget this part. Second stage would be elimination. Read the options. What are the options you will eliminate? Premises. Premises means simple facts or evidence that the author shares. A repetition of a fact from the passage has to be eliminated from this answer type. Please remember, in this answer type, in the main point or must be true answer type, the focus has to be on the inference or the conclusion that can be drawn from reading what the author has told you. Therefore, any repetition of a fact from the passage will be eliminated. Extra knowledge things will be eliminated. And you have to simply focus on either a summary type of an answer or a conclusion answer. I hope that is clear. Now I will take up any questions from this much, from the first family here. Then we will solve a sample question. Now, we cannot generalize. If you are asking me generalized questions, like if any option is different from the rest of the answers, what will we do? I cannot generalize that for you right now. I do not, because I do not know what you mean by very, very different. What I'm trying to do here is tell you that in main point or must be true, the answer should be deduced from the argument or passage, or the answer should reflect the given conclusion of the author. Right? There are two ways that the author is going to ask you this. One is to ask you directly the main point or the conclusion or what follows. Another way the author can ask you this is to choose an option which is not the answer. These questions are called except questions. These questions are called except questions. Yes, we can have the office hours on fallacies. Right? When we solved main point, Khushi, please send me the question where we solved the class sheet and the main point was not the conclusion. Please send me that question. Right? Yes, we will have more CR doubt sessions. Ria, no, we don't have to choose the except option. We have to choose the option which is either given these points. So the option choices are given on the screen over here. So the answer has to reflect the main point. So I was saying that in this attempt here to do the main point, we don't have to focus on facts, etc. Right? So, for example, let's look at option A. It is probably technologically possible for humankind to alter the climate of Mars. It is within human technology to make the climate of Mars inhabitable. One can say that inhabitable could mean alter, but is this reflecting the main point? So I said that if some option is repeating the given facts, that is not the main point. This is a fact, right? Research efforts are now justified if there is even a chance of making another planet inhabitable. This is the conclusion. This is the conclusion. It is probably within the reach of human technology. It is probably technologically possible for humans to alter the climate. This is only a repetition of the facts. The conclusion is that the author says, since now we can or we are now in a position to do it, any effort that looks at more life is justified. This is the conclusion. So if anything, my answer has to reflect this conclusion. So I start reading the options and I see that option A is just repeating one of the facts. And this word alter is not very to this thing. It is suspect. Why is this suspect? I mean, it's a long shot. Inhabitable, does it mean alter? Let's keep it. But still, it's not fulfilling my answer requirement. It would take several centuries to mark. It is another fact. Again, several centuries. We have said it here that it is going to be a lot of time before people start living there. But it's not the same as saying that it will take so much time to change the climate, but still it is another fact. So A and B are those answer types where I said repetition of facts have to be removed as answer option. This is only done in comparison to show that we took so much time anyways for different things. So why not for this? Dot close to the main point. D is repeating the conclusion. D is repeating the conclusion. I said if nothing else, the main point answer has to focus on the conclusion. Therefore, the correct answer for this is D. Efforts to change the climate of Mars could facilitate. This is one of the sub-conclusions. It is another reason that the author is saying that we should spend time and energy on Mars. So these are facts. E is another sub-conclusion or another reason that the author is saying. What is the core idea of the author? That research efforts are justified, no matter how long it takes. So answer will be option D. Exactly what I was telling you, that in main point, your focus area has to be the conclusion. Any repetition of facts will be eliminated. A and B is repeating the facts. It's not talking about the conclusion. The author is given facts of how we can change Mars, how we can live there, right? A conclusion, how do you know that what is the conclusion? A conclusion looks like this. A conclusion looks like this, are justified. So there is a class that we do in main point. Many of you may have already done it. So in that class, we show you how to differentiate between conclusion and facts and sub-conclusion. How to differentiate between conclusion and facts and sub-conclusion. Conclusion types are discussed with you in that class. Right? Sunidhi Kashyap, repetition of the conclusion is exactly the main point. Main point of any author is the conclusion. So naturally, it will be the right answer. Repetition of conclusion is the right answer in this. Repetition of facts will make the answer incorrect. I hope that answers your question. Yes, so the bottom line correct, Tanima Tiwari, is don't repeat the facts, don't use extra information or knowledge, right? Only focus on the conclusion. And I will not go into details of how to identify the conclusion or the main point from other facts and sub-conclusion. That will be our class on main point alone. That is not covered in today's class because today's class we have to just focus on core ideas for different families. Is that all right? Achit Mishra, you have to do the class on main point in order to answer that. So there are different types of conclusions. The words of a conclusion help you distinguish it from other sentences in the passage, in the argument. Conclusions are prescriptive. Conclusions are prescriptive. They are predictions or predictors. They are emphatic, right? So this is the class on main point, which you will do in one of our classes once you start classes here. So let's move to the next family of questions. This, I think, is the simplest family of questions, which is evidence family. The types of questions you see in evidence family are strengthen, weaken, resolve the paradox, solve a problem. So these are the keywords of evidence family questions. The questions will say strengthen, support, or justify, agree with the author, weaken, counter, mitigate, or jeopardize the author, resolve the paradox, and solve A problem. Now, solve a problem is not asked as a question. You are given a problem and you have to give the best possible solution. Right? This is evidence family. It is significantly different from main point. The answer for the mass question was D. Now, in evidence family questions, why is it different from main point? In main point, we only focus on the given conclusion, we identify it, we summarize it. In evidence family questions, please note a new premise has to be given. In main point, I said no new information, no new information. Everything should be written in the main point question or be deducible from it. In evidence family questions, that is why they are different from main point, new premise has to be given. I hope I've made myself clear. In main point questions, no new information has to be given. Only the conclusion has to be focused on. If the conclusion is not written, you have to deduce it. But in evidence family question, in order to answer the question well, you have to give a new premise. What type of new premise? When you strengthen, if it is a strengthened question, the new premise should add to the existing premise and uphold the conclusion. If it is a weakened question, the new premise should nullify the existing premise. So you have to give new information. When you have to strengthen it, the new information should add on to the existing information. The author will strengthen the conclusion by giving a reason. You have to give one more reason. To weaken it, you have to show that the author's reason is faulty. You can provide another new reason to cancel it, right? Or somehow show that the given reason does not work. So in all this process, you are going to add new information. Please note in main point, I will say this answer is not correct because it is giving new information. But in evidence family, I cannot say this. I have to give new reason. And in resolving the paradox, a paradox is a situation in which two opposing things happen together. Or a thing acts in a manner which is completely opposite to its behavior. Paradoxes are seen in economics. Instead of price rise with increasing demand, with increasing demand, price falls with increasing demand. This is a paradox. So, evidence family, you are also asked to resolve the paradox. You will be shown a situation where two opposite things are happening. You have to give a reason why the given thing is behaving like this. Show of hands if you have understood evidence family, everyone. So let's solve one question in evidence family. Probably does not reflect a drop in the population of these rare grasshoppers over this period. However, because 2013 had a super wet monsoon and 2017 there was a dry monsoon. So that means the author is saying that this difference is not because of drop in population, it is because of weather. So whenever I have to strengthen, I have to give a reason to support the conclusion. That means in my mind, I should say that the conclusion is difference is because of weather. What type of weather? Dry weather or wet weather. So please remember in evidence family questions, I have to look for a new premise. Either the new premise has to support the conclusion or nullify it. First, identify the conclusion, then write down that conclusion that you have to support. Write down 2-3 keywords of that conclusion. So I have to say difference is because of the weather, right? So in the same place, if the weather is wet, many grasshoppers will come. If it is dry, fewer grasshoppers will come. Let's look at option A. It is giving me some outside premise, correct? But is it saying it is because of dry or wet weather? No, it is giving me some information. So that means other than the correct answer, different options will give you some new premises. But what will happen with the new premises? Are they having an effect on the conclusion or not? So A has no effect on the conclusion. Let's look at B. The only habitat of green grasshoppers is around pools. Now this is incorrect. Only habitat. That means the other number should be 0 then. The author is saying if it starts raining in that place, these grasshoppers will appear. But if the only habitat is this, then this discussion is out. Because grasshoppers were seen. But their presence was affected by dry and wet monsoons. Only that is not justified here. See, bottle green grasshoppers move about very little to get food. Again, like A, it is giving me some information about the grasshopper, but it is not justifying dry or wet monsoon. Let's look at option D. D is strengthening the author's conclusion by removing any other alternate reason of the grasshopper's low number. How? It is saying that it must be because of the weather, not because in this year when the grasshoppers were few, it was not because there was some predator that ate them. So this is a method of strengthening. The author says in this year the grasshoppers were few and in this year the grasshoppers were many. The author feels it happened because of weather. To support the author further, what did I just do with D? I eliminated an alternate cause of their disappearance. So when I strengthen, I eliminate alternate causes that could have caused this phenomena. When I weaken, I give these alternate causes to show that this phenomena could have been caused by this reason also and not because of the reason which the author feels. So what did I do in D? I removed the angle of predators, which further strengthened the fact that the grasshoppers' numbers decreased due to dry and wet season. B is incorrect. I've already discussed why B is incorrect because of the word only. If the only habitat of grasshoppers is around pools, then this discussion is null and void. Then why am I discussing this? A is eliminated and C is eliminated because it's not giving any help to the conclusion, which is whether is responsible for the numbers of the grasshopper. What the grasshopper eats or how the grasshopper behaves is not pushing the conclusion. That is why we have eliminated A and C. D is the answer because it is cancelled another possible reason why the numbers of the grasshopper could be low. Couldn't they be low if some predator ate them in that year? Would that not weaken the author? So now I say the predator angle is also not there. This strengthens the author and says this looks like the only reason, the reason given by the author. So one of the ways, now evidence family is strengthened. In our classrooms, we do it over one whole class of 2 hours. We discuss different ways to strengthen. One of the ways that we strengthen an answer is by eliminating alternate causes. So answer D is one. Why? Because we have eliminated alternate causes. Right? Shruti Gupta, D is the answer because the author feels that this difference in number is due to dry and wet monsoons. I have to say yes, this difference is number is due to dry and wet monsoon. D is helping that reason by saying no other reason could have done it. What other reason is D eliminating? Predators. Right? It is eliminating an angle of predators. As a result, if predators did not eat them, then author gets strengthened. That means the only possible reason is because of dry and wet monsoons. I hope that answers your question, Shruti. There could be several others. There are very long messages, Nandini and everyone that you have written. I wish I could read them in detail. Maybe we can discuss this question in our classroom again, or you can message me or mail me, and I can look at these long messages and, try to respond to them. I hope that will be helpful so that we don't have to pause the class for this thing. It's just an overview class. So I'm sure all of you know where to catch me. If not, then I am giving you my email ID and you can write down this reason and email me, and I will be happy to read it at length and answer it. Right? My email is surabhi@clatpossible.com. All right? Surabhi@clatpossible.com. Okay. So this is a sample strengthening question. My aim of doing this question with you was to show you how we bring in a new reason or how we bring in new information to either counter or to support the author. So in D, we eliminated one possible reason. It's a new piece of information not given here. Please notice that in main point, anything to do with facts, I eliminated. But in strengthen and weaken, I look at new facts to strengthen or new facts to weaken the author. So far, can you draw these things out from what I have just discussed? Forget about this particular question. If you still have some issues with it, I've already given you my email. Priyal, I've already given you my email. Can you please email me now? But my point is, have you distinguished between these two things? So main point versus evidence family, or main point versus strengthen weaken. In main point, anything to do with premises of facts is eliminated. In strengthen weaken, our answer only focuses on extra premises and facts. In main point, all I have to do is help the author with the conclusion, identify the author's conclusion. In strengthen weaken, I have to use extra facts to strengthen or weaken the conclusion. If this much is clear between these two family questions, please show of hands. Right? Okay, I do have another weekend question for you. Hopefully this will help you answer. Let's do this question quickly, children. Hopefully this will bring this point closer to. It's a short question and I hope you will be able to answer it. All right, let me help you with screen visibility. 1 minute. All right, give me 1 minute to clear up the screen. All right, now I hope you will be able to answer the question. Yes. Answers, please. Very good. I think many of you have got the correct answer. That means when you are given smaller uncomplicated arguments or smaller, uncomplicated paragraphs, you do a better job. Am I right? Thus, the correct answer is D. I think all of you have got D for this. So am I right in saying that your concept is clear now? And naturally, if you are given smaller, uncomplicated arguments and smaller, uncomplicated paragraphs, then you do a much better job. So maybe we can do another CLAT session and focus on how to make long, complicated arguments into small sentences. Yes, I think that will be a good session. So this is a small, uncomplicated thing. You know very clearly that the first line is the conclusion, and after that is the supporting detail. We have to weaken it and say, no, going to college is not a waste of time. And we have to put into doubt this data of out of 10 richest people in the world, 6 are college dropouts. So in weaken, I'm not saying that the author is lying. Out of 10 richest people in the world, 6 are college dropouts could be a fair figure. Yet, it is not correct to say going to college is a waste of time. That means I have to bring in a new figure, which is better than this figure to prove my point. So this figure is correct. It is only of 10 rich people in the world. But D gives me a better figure and disproves the conclusion. This is a classic example of weaken the argument. How do you do it? If it is about figures, you somehow show, either bring in another set of figures that is more powerful, or you somehow show that the given figure is a misrepresentation. So in this case, we brought in a better figure. Fine, in the top 10 rich people, 6 are dropouts, but across people who are rich, etc., a bigger percentage of college goers is rich, and a smaller percentage of college dropouts is rich, and that is significant. Right? Yes, you have to find exactly that, Shruti Gupta. Serious doubt means weaken. I hope that answers your question. It is another way of weakening the argument. Right? There is a query on option A. Had the 6 people in the argument attended college, they may have been even richer than they are currently. Now, this is, look at option A. Rich as a word of having more money is not the question here. Rich as a process of getting an employment and making it big is the consideration here. I hope that answers your question. Even if they have 100 crores after dropping out of college, it's a good argument. Now, maybe they would have earned 200 crores, but the point is without college, they were able to earn 100 crores. So A is not doing its job well. Whereas D says that across the globe, if I see people who attended college, their percentage of from 0 to 100 is a bigger number. The question here is not from 100 to 200 crores. The question here is how many people were able to break it even or make it big in the world. I hope that answers your question. All those who think A is the answer. And we come to the last family of questions, everyone, which is method of reasoning or fallacies. Yes, that is the argument, Riya. That is correct. Method of reasoning of fallacies. There are 2 things that I have written here because they go hand in hand. This is a technical category of question. This is a technical category of questions. In this, we comment on how the author has written In this, we comment on how the author has written the argument. Now, number one, unlike evidence family is about reading. Evidence family is about finding new information. Evidence family is about using extra knowledge to process that information and strengthen or weaken. Main point is a pure reading phenomenon. So let's look at the three categories again. Main point is purely about reading and understanding. Answering main point questions in CR is like doing reading comprehension. Evidence family is extra information from outside and extra knowledge also from outside. Sometimes you need extra knowledge to answer or to give extra information from outside to strengthen or weaken. You should know about basic facts. You should know about price rise, demand, supply, basics. That helps in choosing the best option. So evidence family is purely that. Method of reasoning, unlike main point and evidence, is technical questions. Here you have to do proper classes in critical reasoning. You need a good class in critical reasoning. This we do across 3 to 4 classes, because here you have to be taught what is role played by, how to distinguish between premise and conclusion. That's the first class that we do. That also takes about 2 classes. Argument structure you have to study. You have to study faults in an argument called fallacies. These are proper technical classes that you have to do. Right? How does speaker one respond to the other? Faults I've already covered. Then you have to understand parallel reasoning. Parallel reasoning is a tough question type if the options are made tough. So this category of questions is purely technique based. And this technique has to be first studied in the classroom. Right? So when we do this question type, we have to do classes on it, number one. And number two, once you know the technique, then maybe these questions become easy because you are able to recognize the technique. So some people find method of reasoning questions fairly simple. That is because after classes, they are confident that they will be able to answer those questions. Right? I'll show you what bold-faced questions are. So here it is only about technique. It is not about answering or finding out the conclusion. It is not about, what do you call it? It is not about finding out the conclusion. It is not about finding new information or anything. It is purely about knowing how the argument has been structured. And the class on fallacies helps you do that even better. Right? So I can show you, if you have noted down this, please note this down. These are the question types that you get here. Yes, that's a very good question, Karthik. Karthik Shukla, that's a very good question. Now comes the question of assumption. Why did I not include assumption in any of the families? There are 2 reasons for it. Number one, in the CLAT exam, you know, what happens is, not just in the CLAT exam, actually, assumption is as far as the process or the technique is concerned, assumption fits into must be true family, which is the first family. Everyone should listen to this discussion. And I'm glad that a student pinpointed it. I was about to come to it on my own, but I'm very happy that it came from one of the students. That shows that you all are studying, and that shows that you all are aware of what you are studying, and I'm very happy about it. Right? So that's a very good question, Karthik, because that just shows that you are doing your work well. Now, as I was saying, as far as technique or process is concerned, deducing something from the written, right? Assumption is like inference. It is the subset of inference. Why is it like inference or a subset of inference? Inference means from reading what is given, I have to take out what is not given. Right? The word inference has invariably been, sort of replaced with conclusion. Why? Because inference means implication. Implication means from what you are saying, this is what I conclude. So if the author is saying whatever, A, B, C, D, E, and the reader concludes F, If the author concludes F, it is called conclusion. If the reader concludes F, it is called inference. Have you understood the difference between assumption and inference, children? Right? So conclusion, if the author writes F, it is conclusion. If the reader writes F, it is inference. So in main point, sometimes the conclusion is not written by the author. The reader has to deduce F and write it. Now, the fact is that F was deduced, it was not written. Assumption is also something which is deduced, it is not written. So the process of assumption and inference is very, very similar. From what is written, I deduce something which is not written. If it is a conclusion, it is called inference. If it is a missing link or a missing premise, it is called assumption. Many times in must be true and inference questions, when you solve in class, I will tell you that this is the answer, but this is the assumption made by the author. So sometimes it is very difficult to decide whether the given inference is like a conclusion, an implication, or is it like a implicit premise. So the difference between assumption and inference is the difference of the words implicit and implication. What are the words that I just said? Implicit and implication. Write it down. Implicit and implication in the chat box so that I know you have heard it. What are the two words that I said? Write it together. Implicit and implication. Do you realize they look so similar? They are from the same mother word. This is exactly what happens in these question types. Many times you will not mark an inference answer. You will tell me, ma'am, I'm not marking it because it's an assumption. And the question said inference. Then I will explain to you, yes, I understand, darling, what you are saying. I understand, my dear. It is definitely an assumption and the author has asked you, and the question has asked you for inference. But just remember that, there's a very bare difference, very hairline difference between the two things. Many times it's not hairline, it is clear. But other times, implicit and implication somehow start overlapping. Because of this reason, many times assumptions come into the family of must be true or the first family. But as far as the content is concerned, assumption is a missing premise. That means in order to answer this question, you have to give the missing premise. A missing premise is equivalent to a new premise. So assumption also fits the family of evidence. Why? Because as the word suggests, what is assumption? It is missing evidence. So assumption has sort of an overlap between the two. Earlier, I would use, put it into evidence family always without hesitation. But as CLAT and AILET started happening and assumption and inference started blurring, in many times must be true questions, the inference answer was actually an assumption answer. So I refrained from putting it into evidence family only. And in the entire PPT, I could have written assumption in both. But then I said it would just confuse you. So I thought I would put this discussion in the end. And this discussion will also help you visualize assumption. If you just visualize assumption as something which we are deducing from reading what is given, it's just like inference. Imagine it like a subset of inference. It is missing premise, and inference is nothing but the missing conclusion. Or even if the conclusion is not missing, inference just gives you another conclusion. Right? So assumption as a process fits into that inference family, but as a content thing, as a tangible thing, it fits into evidence family because assumption is missing evidence. Just like to support, we bring new evidence. To weaken, we bring new evidence. In assumption, we bring in the evidence which is not written but should be written. In another way, it's new evidence, right? So would you all agree with me that it's difficult to categorize assumption? Have you understood this to an extent? At least those who have done some of these questions. Right? That is the reason I did not put it in any category. And I'm so glad that it was brought up by you all. Right? Yes, Shruti, your question is visible. Now, please note that the recording of what this class will be made available to you. It is on the YouTube channel. You can always go back and listen into parts that you have missed. So have you noted this down? Then we shall see some questions on method of reasoning. So method of reasoning, as I was saying, is a commentary on how the argument is structured. Some of these questions, many of you would have done in our classes also. If not, you will be doing them. So this is a question of typical method of reasoning question. What is the role played by private corporations? Yes, assumption is a missing premise. That is correct, Astha Sehgal. Singhal, sorry. Already, yes, some answers are coming in which are correct. So what is the role played by private corporations? Please note that private corporation is written after the word since. Give me 1 minute to look for the private corporation is written after the word since. Since is a premise indicator. Since is a premise indicator. Since is a premise indicator. That means it is definitely not the conclusion. Look at how I'm using keywords to answer. Please look at how I'm using keywords to answer. It's not the conclusion. It is not explaining honest political parties. I'm sure you have been able to eliminate B. It is not distracting our attention. It is a very short argument. It is written after since means it is a premise. A premise supports the conclusion. What type of support is private corporation providing? It is ruling out one alternative way and suggesting another way. It is saying that since private corporations will not support this venture, we have to find public funds to support it. That means there are two ways to support this, and the author is ruling out private ways and saying we have to use the public funds. So answer for this will be option D. Those of you who are having difficulty with this, you will be able to answer this, trust me. Only thing is that we have to do, method of reasoning classes. So what did I just tell you? Since is a premise indicator. Anything written after since is the premise. So I have eliminated option A. B and C are irrelevant options. And look at how the author has written this argument. The author has said, since A will not do it, B has to do it. So A and B are providing two ways, two alternative ways. Private corporation is A. Since A will not do it, that means the job of A is to be eliminated. So the author has used A to eliminate one way and come out with the other way. The author has used A or private corporation to eliminate one way and come out with the other way. If not A, then B. Shivam Bhalla, if not A, then B. Excellent. Yes, Navneet, that is correct. It's suppressed correlative. That's very good. I see that you have just done the fallacies class with me, haven't you? We just did it day before yesterday or something. If not A, then B. Excellent. Syllogisms and all will come under formal logic. That is why, Kunjal. Syllogisms and all will come under formal logic. So I was showing you another question category. Film critic responds to the movie buff's claim by. Let's solve this question. session. Please wait. All right. So I think many of you have got the correct answer there. So look at this word yes. Yes shows an agreement. Mostly the agreement is for the conclusion. If there is a disagreement, then instead of yes, but is written most of the times. Right? So in dialogues, either there is a disagreement or there is an agreement. 90% cases, there is a disagreement. So instead of yes, but is written. Instead of yes, but is written. So but shows disagreement. Yes shows an agreement. That means they are principally agreeing that classic movies are standing the test of time. Now see, the disagreement comes here. What is this part? This part is for the premise. So the disagreement comes mostly in the reason. Right? Movie buff says stars. Stars are responsible for this. Film critic says original. The original film decides whether it is a classic or not. Right? So movie buff says that the stars are responsible for it. Both agree on the definition of classic movies. But the movie buff focuses on the stars as the reason and film critic focuses on the original film, quality of the original film. So there is no questioning or undermining because both agree on the classic film thing. The difference only is in the reason. This D is saying reason. Judging, standard of judging means difference is only in the reason. So the answer will be option D. Right? And someone was talking about boldface. So this question, last question for the day is about boldface. So I hope you will be able to see the boldface. I'll point it out to you, please. One boldface is this, and the second boldface is this. In boldface questions, we are asked the relationship between the two. How are the two related? Right? How are the two related? So most of the time, the boldface questions are either one is supporting the other, one is disagreeing with the other. You can see this from this word, however. However, as I'm giving you a hint, suggests that the two are likely to be opposite to each other. So if you quickly read this, then I will get into details. All right. So I think many of you are giving me the answer now. However, suggests that it is not support, right? So look at option C, can be eliminated. We start talking about most modern day cafes fail within the first years of their launch. One effective method is to take a franchisee. So author suggests this and gives support to it also in the non-boldface part. It gives support. But with, however, it opposes it. It gives information that shows that franchisees may not be a good idea. So the one effective means it's a prescriptive conclusion. It is an advice or a suggestion. So the author is giving this advice. So it is not a premise. The former itself is a claim. It is a claim. The author is saying you should try to take franchisees. It is a suggestion. So it's a claim. But the latter is not giving support. It is actually showing why the claim will be bad. It is talking about issues with not the franchisee business, but the way in which the author has given the premise. So the author supports by saying that, yes, it is a good thing. Many people who are running franchisees are happy. But the second part, starting with however, says, however, the survey only looks at people who are running franchisees. What about those who ran franchisees and left it? So this gives me a claim. It is the author's conclusion. Take a franchisee. This part is the support. Why is a franchisee good? Many people were taken a survey of and they said, yes, it is a good thing. But this shows problems with the survey. It does not show problems with the franchisee. It shows problems with the survey. So the second part is a flaw in methodology. Flaw in methodology means the way the survey was conducted. So you have to read not just the boldface to do the boldface questions. You have to read the whole thing. Then you have to write down what each part is doing, like I have written. This is the claim. This is the support, which is not bold-faced. And in the boldface, the support is withdrawn. How? By showing that the survey may have been faulty. So how to do boldface questions? Same way as you do every other question. Read, point out what each sentence is doing, role played by each sentence, and then match the role played of the two boldface and look for the option. Right? So second boldface is like a counter premise. That is correct. But what type of counter premise? It is not attacking franchisees. It is attacking the survey, the way the survey was conducted. I hope that answers your question. So the answer will be B, and most of you are correct. So let's quickly recapitulate what all we have just done. We read about the three families. All three have distinct methods of reasoning and methods of answering questions. In claim, we were focusing only on conclusion, whether written or unwritten, which is the main point or must be true family. In the second evidence family, we bring outside information to answer the question. And in the third family, we focus on how or what is the role played by each sentence in the argument. Yes, however can be read just like but. That is correct. Right? So this is my sort of summary of all the three families. This is what you have to keep in mind. And now go into details of each family in the classroom and do questions in each family properly. But just keep this distinction in your head. So for that, you need to know what are the question types of each family and this part about what are we focusing on in the answer. All right. I would also like to take this opportunity to introduce the next CLAT Thursday. It will be GK. Here it is the question hour. Question hour means in this ChatLat Thursday, you can ask all doubts about how to study GK, any queries you have in mind. Right? Either you can log in for our ChatLat Thursdays, or you can join us on our CLAT Possible channel, which is CLAT Possible Official on YouTube. I will look forward to chatting with you. This is where you can reach out to me. It's surabhi@clatpossible.com. Please feel free to find me on, okay, just a minute. Actually, this is written in black, so I think it's not visible. I'm Surabhi Modi on Facebook, Surabhi_M_S on Instagram. Or Sahai Surabhi on Twitter. Please join our reading club, Book Buff the Reading Club on Facebook. Here we do a lot of good book readings, book analysis. Very soon I'll be starting some book reading sessions here. I share articles that you can read. It's a very motivating place to be in if you are looking at reading or if you are already a reading buff. So I look forward to seeing you on Book Buff the Reading Club. It's an online Facebook club. Surabhi_M_S on Instagram, Surabhi Modi on Facebook, and Sahai Surabhi on Twitter. So this is Instagram. So I'd like to stay connected with all of you. I hope you liked the session today. And I would like to hear from you. Please email me or message me on any of these portals. What is it that you want me to take up next in the ChatClat? So if you reach out and if you tell me, then I will be able to organize that session as well. Thank you so much, everyone. And do keep tuned in. Most of our ChatClat Thursdays happen at 4 or 5 o'clock in the evening. And if there is anything that I have not answered here, please feel free to email me. Thank you and have a nice day, everyone.